Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. This is for UFC 313. This episode and all episodes of the Dogger Pass podcast are brought to you by CoolBet. Use promo code Dogger Pass when making a new account to get a match up to $200 on your first deposit. 3x rollover. I think like minimum odds are minus 200. It's a very, very easy rollover if you want to get in the game over at CoolBet. Cody, how are you doing today there, buddy?
Yeah, feeling banged up, but it's Wednesday, Paul, so I gotta stop making excuses for me and then just power on this thing. So yeah, we've got a really nice looking UFC pay-per-view. A lot of nice fights to go over, so that's the kind of stuff that pumps you up, give you some energy. Did my tape study, got through that, feeling pretty good about some of these leans. Of course, some of them, I'm gonna need your opinion on them as well.
All right, let's get into it. 12 fights, so no time to waste. We got Alex Pereira taking on Magomed Ankalaev, minus 109 at CoolBet. Only 18 cents of juice over at CoolBet. So the money line's very fair, not too much juice. Good sports, but get over there. Dogger Pass promo code. Yada yada yada. I feel like every single time, Cody, that we have Magomed Ankalaev fight, we're like, if he wrestles in this fight, he could make this fight a whole lot easier for himself, and he gets by and does well. And I mean, he's 20-1 for a reason, or whatever is damn right. He's got the draw against Jan. He's super, super elite, and it was kind of why isn't he getting a title shot for all this time? And then you have a performance like against Rakic, where it's like Rakic, I don't know if we ever really consider that guy a title contender. Maybe at 205 anybody can be a title contender, but very, very close tit for tat type of striking exchanges between the two of them. I don't know. It feels like everybody I talk to this week is like Alex Pereira, play of the week, play of the century, play of the month. But it's like this number just stays where it's at. I like Pereira because I tell myself all the time that Magomed Ankalaev is going to go out there, he's going to wrestle, he's going to take the path of least resistance. And he rarely ever does that. Plus, now you have all this extra time. Pereira working on takedown defense with Grandpa Glover. You see the social media posts and stuff about that always. But like now it's like he's had enough years that's like maybe he's got enough to at least, stay out of trouble if he gets taken down in round one. There's been plenty of guys who've been taken down by Ankalaev. They don't get finished. They make it controlled. They may take some elbows to the dome, but I don't know. I'm like everybody else on earth. It feels like, at least to me, it feels like everybody is on Pereira. And I'm looking at the line going like, what am I missing? This seems too easy, but Pereira's the pick for me.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Ankalaev, but there's no real good reason. I see exactly what everyone that's on prayer is seeing. He is the better striker, and this fight probably figures to be a striking match. As much as we love Ankalaev, as much as he's a Dagestani wrestler, Paul, you outlined it yourself. He does not shoot takedowns. He's had 14 fights in the UFC. Only twice has he completed more than one takedown in a fight. Only once has he completed more than two takedowns in a fight. Like, he's a low volume takedown guy. His takedown accuracy is only hanging at about 30%, and yet, he doesn't really stick to that game plan. There's a number of these fights you can go back and look at where it's like, okay, Ankalaev is using that southpaw stance, beautiful left hand. The rounds are starting to get close. Why not shoot the takedown? You just don't really understand. Go back to that fight with Jan Blachowicz, right? And although it's a draw performance and you look at Ankalaev and he does a lot of good things in that fight, there's two things that really do noticeably stand out. One, that was a version of Jan Blachowicz that was just fresh off getting drubbed by Glover Teixeira on the ground. Going into that fight, you would know that the advantage over Jan Blachowicz is clearly on the ground, yet he goes 2 for 10 on takedowns. A lot of them are half-hearted. He ends up winning the fight with top control, sure, but for the most part, it's like that's not where he's comfortable. Yes, he's a Dagestani wrestler, but he's not actually a wrestler. He prefers to strike. That's where he's more comfortable. I don't think it's a cardio issue, just, that's where he's been mostly winning a lot of these fights. He's not super risk-averse, but he just does enough, hangs in front of you, and wins. The other thing is it's a bit of a complacency, right? When you watch his fight with Thiago Santos, he's just playing with his food. He's not putting his foot on the gas at any point. And then Thiago Santos ends up clipping him with a beautiful shot, drops him in the fourth round, clean knocked down, not enough to win the fight. His fight with Jan Blachowicz, he largely stands in front of Jan Blachowicz, and Jan absolutely torches his lead leg. In the second round, he's limping around on it. On the third round, he physically goes down from a leg kick. Fourth and fifth, he ends up getting on the ground and is able to neutralize Jan Blachowicz. But again, path of victory here is that you could just stomp his legs. If he wants to stand in front of you and go shot for shot, you could beat him with power. Yeah, Alex Pereira is a better striker than him. He will maul that lead leg. He will hurt him with those standing shots. It's up to Ankalaev to mix in those wrestling and mix in those takedowns. Reason why I end up taking him, even though he shot zero takedowns against Alexander Rakic, again, we can talk about that all day of what he's capable of doing that he just chooses not to do. But when he does get guys down, he does have good top control. Like, they're not getting back up. And in Pereira's case, he's everybody's baby. He's everybody's darling. They love him. He's Shama. He's the biggest star in the UFC. They want to see him fight every single weekend. Huge, huge, huge fan base. And that's why this line, I think, is as close as it is. But legit, he's beaten Khalil Roundtree, a rematch versus Yuri that Yuri wasn't quite ready for. He did knock out Jamal Hill in a fight that Hill took short notice at UFC 300. It's all action fights versus guys that are stand-up strikers that are not necessarily at their top form in this current day and age. So this is a very good fight. Again, very good fight. I just feel like Ankalaev can hang on the feet long enough to get this fight to the ground, and that's where he needs to get it. And for Pereira, no doubt he's been working with Glover Teixeira, but he's been on this media tour. He's been all over the place. He's trained with 100 different training partners over the last couple months. He's currently, he gets on planes and he's eating at restaurants and he's staying in hotels, and that's all well and good, but Ankalaev is taking this as serious as he can. I'm sure his coaches are telling him mix in the takedowns, and if he does do that, I feel like everyone's always believed he has the style to beat Pereira, right? Everyone's always believed that. Pereira hasn't had to fight this guy. He's fought three guys that were ranked lower than him. Everyone's saying how the UFC is purposely avoiding this particular matchup. And finally, the UFC does tell Magomed Ankalaev, okay, you got it, but we're going to do it during Ramadan just to throw you that extra little bit off. They're avoiding this matchup for the champ because they know he's super marketable, makes a ton of money, and Ankalaev has a bit of a boring style, and they're not going to be able to market him. They've been avoiding it. Unfortunately, now it's forced to happen, and I can't back away from why are they avoiding it? Bad style clash. Why am I going to abandon that? I'm taking that bad style clash. Ankalaev's got to mix in some wrestling as well. I just think he greases this thing out.
It's fair enough. I've bet Ankalaev enough in the past. It's just like there's been so many times that I've backed him, and I'm like, why are we letting this get so close?
Fair.
So that would be my concern. It's like so many of his fights, he just hangs out in that kickboxing range where he's gonna get his leg absolutely chewed up. He's gonna put himself in danger of those hooks. Like, I don't know. We'll see weigh-ins. We'll see how the rest of the week plays out. But it sounds like we are split on the main event. We'll find out what we are on the co-main event. We got Rafael Fiziev taking on Justin, the highlight, Gaethje. Minus 164 for Fiziev, plus 139 for Gaethje. These guys obviously fought back at UFC 286, March of 2023. Very, very close fight. It was a majority decision, but like I understand. Gaethje definitely roughed up Fiziev in round three, but the judge, I think it was Sutherland. I may be wrong. I was looking at it just beforehand, but like the judge who gave that a 10-8 was like a little bit out, like not even a little bit, very out to lunch. Nobody except for that guy gave it a 10-8. My idea here is pretty simple. What have we really seen from these guys since since that fight? Gaethje went out, got a second round head kick KO win over Dustin Poirier, and then obviously overhand right lost 4 minutes 59 seconds, round number 5 against Max Holloway at UFC 300. Everyone, the knockout scene around the world, a fight that Max Holloway absolutely put it on him, put the volume and pressure on him, but Max Holloway does that to people. Just the amount of volume, pace, everything like that. The moment, it was a nasty, nasty knockout. Not a great feeling going back to Gaethje after, the guy who's been so durable over all of these years. You see him get absolutely torched like that. I suppose I understand a little bit, but like Fiziev, on the other hand, had that fight and then injured himself against Gamrot. And that was in September 2023. We haven't seen him since then. He had a significant leg injury, which ended the fight. And frankly, the fight with Gamrod's like round one didn't throw very much volume. There wasn't very much going on in that first round between the two of them. So it's kind of one of those situations, Gabby's gonna be put away soon. Once I get through with this, a little bit too much scratching. I don't know if it's coming through the microphone. Long story short, Cody, the way I look at this is I look at their previous matchup between the two of them, 3 round fight, close fight, competitive fight, probably a pick 'em. Give me the plus 140. That's where I think the value is. Could you win, lose, whatever? If it's the same fight that plays out, it's like we're flipping a coin, and you're giving me plus 140. So that was my first click of the week. What's your take here?
Yeah, I got the same thing, but we know it's closer to a 50-50 fight, and both guys are going to have their chances to win 100%. It's just going to be a violent fight. You've already seen this once, less than 2 years ago, but about 2 years ago, and both guys have plenty of moments. There's no doubt about it that Rafael Fiziev is a better striker. He's much faster than Justin Gaethje. He's much cleaner than Justin Gaethje. Gaethje's just got that dog in him. He's got the durability. He's got the ability to push a pace. Obviously, training at Colorado, cardio's never been an issue for him, and it's that kind of fight. The problem here is that seeing Justin Gaethje come off that knockout loss to Max Holloway, the question becomes, where's his durability at? He's 36 years old. He has been finished. That knockout, Paul mentioned, the knockout seen around the world, it is one of the most violent finishes you are ever going to see. A lot of guys are not going to come back from that. A lot of guys aren't going to come 100% back from that. In his case, it's like he's always been, Homer Simpson effect. He just takes a beating till you're tired of throwing, and then he comes back and has his moments. If he's not able to take those shots anymore, if this new version of Justin Gaethje comes back with a little bit less durability, then he's just not the same guy at all. Rewatching him versus Fiziev 1 from 2 years ago, the first round, Fiziev hits him with a bunch of stuff that may not come out by today's standards. Knee up the middle, a flying knee, beautiful right hook. In the third round starts out, I don't know why it's a 10-8 round, as Paul mentioned. First round starts out, Fiziev almost knocks Justin Gaethje out cold. I mean, right hand on the button, freezes him up standing, but damn, Gaethje's just too tough. He works his way back into it. If he can't take those shots, and you know they're coming, then it changes everything. But in that same breath where we're wondering, like, can Gaethje still take the punishment? I also have the same feelings for Fiziev. Not necessarily his chin, it's his body. He's only 31 years old. But between a long, prolific Muay Thai career, tons of MMA fights, lots of mostly just striking, 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 his dad gave him a set of gloves and made him fight his cousins back when he was 8 years old. He formally started training with a coach when he was 11 years old. His body's just been absolutely roughed up. And that's what was my biggest takeaway from the Gamrot fight. See, Justin Gaethje's just too stupid to know any better. So when he fought Fiziev, it's a crazy fight. He fights right after that against Dustin Poirier with the same thing. He's not afraid of getting hit. He's coming after Poirier, puts him away. He tries to fight Max Holloway the same way. Holloway's just too good for him. Fiziev, meanwhile, in his one fight after Justin Gaethje, he's not looking to storm Gamrot. In fact, he's very, very patient in that fight. Takes his time, maybe wins the first round, but even Mateusz Gamrot's landing some good shots on him. In the second round, he throws a kick, it hits the knee, it breaks his foot immediately, he falls to the ground, that's the end of it. And you haven't seen him in a year and a half since. His entire first fight with Justin Gaethje is Justin Gaethje outlanding him with boxing combinations, hitting him to the head. I think he lands like 76 of his strikes to the head. And Fiziev, meanwhile, with the body kicks, leg kicks, he lands 50 kicks to the body. If he's not throwing those same kicks, like we can talk about Justin Gaethje, is he damaged goods? Can he still take the damage? The same question is there for Fiziev. Is he still going to throw 50 kicks? Is he going to throw 100 kicks? He's coming in on short notice. He hasn't fought a year and a half. He hasn't had a full camp. And he's fighting a guy that's an absolute train wreck of a human being. Listen, plus
Yeah,
money on
guy.
Justin Gaethje in this fight is way too tempting for me to turn away from. So I know what I'm going to get out of this one. An absolutely greasy showdown. Both guys will have their moments. But again, Fiziev seems to be a fast starter. The first round is always his best round. Gaethje seems to pick it up. That's what we saw in the first fight. First round Fiziev, third round Gaethje. It came down to the second round. The second round Fiziev outlanded Justin Gaethje, maybe outstruck Justin Gaethje and could be awarded the round, but his eyes hella busted and they're looking for damage these days. So that's why two of the three judges ended up giving it for Justin Gaethje based on damage. Now you're running this thing back. Justin Gaethje's had a full camp, getting ready for presumably some of the best guys in the world, and Fiziev's coming in short notice. He's born in Kyrgyzstan. He moved to Thailand. He's now representing Azerbaijan as his national country, even though he's not actually born there. He's just kind of been all over the place. And they do the interview with him. He looks a little bit older. He looks a little bit out of shape, but he's just I'm so appreciative for the opportunity to come back into a high profile fight. Guy's a gangster. This is going to be a high quality fight. Everyone's going to love to enjoy. But betting him as the betting favorite on short notice off a year and a half long layoff, yeah, I don't think that that's the move. So I got the highlight reel kid, Justin Gaethje, to if it's not a highlight reel finish, it's going to be a fight of the night type of performance. But this is going to be a very fun fight. I got to go with that plus money Gaethje.
Yeah, and you've got just the last little thing is like Fiziev coming off of a leg injury, taking on one of the most prolific leg kickers in UFC history. Like Gaethje kicks like an absolute mule to that lead leg, which opens up some damage down the pipe whenever he does that. Don't get me wrong, but
It's a good live bet spot too. That if
yeah, of
Fiziev just
course.
knocks Gaethje out in the first round, it's like, well, I guess we know now Gaethje's just not built for it anymore. But if he loses the first round, you're going to get an even better number on him. And again, for Gaethje, just like any Justin Gaethje fight, the fight usually starts in round two. This was a 5 rounder. I was hoping it was simply because it's a co-main event on a big pay-per-view, and UFC sometimes make those as 5 rounds. But Fizie's on short notice and hasn't fought a year and a half. And Justin Gaethje's like one or two more 5 rounders away from permanent CTE. So just yeah, give it a very violent 3 round affair, and the rightful man hopefully still wins.
Yeah. I mean, they only needed 3 rounds. I mean, it would have been nice to have an extra 2 rounds the last time these guys fought. And there was those extra 2 rounds. Gotta feel like Gaethje would have taken over. But yeah, 3 rounds makes it a little bit more interesting. We got Ignacio Bahamondes taking on Jalin Turner. Bahamondes minus 123 favorite. Turner can be had for plus 105. Who you got?
Yeah, this is another one where I think if you go Ignacio Bahamondes, and I'm leaning currently Ignacio Bahamondes, I think you probably get a better line on this guy after the first round. Jalen Turner is about as good as a first round fighter as you're going to see.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, in all of his losses, he's beaten them up in the first round, but he's got bad cardio. It seemingly just keeps rearing its ugly head. His fight with him too, Scamrod, he drops Scamrod in the first round, wins it. Second round, he's doing good until he finally gets taken down about halfway through, and then after that, it's just like he's running on fumes, loses the third round, ends up losing a close split decision. His very next fight with Dan Hooker, it's the same thing. The first round, the guy can do no wrong. He's lighting Hooker up, who looks like he's walking in mud. He's so slow compared to Jalen Turner. The second round, the first 4 minutes, 3.5 minutes of the second round is all Jalen Turner. There's 90 seconds left. Hooker's bleeding. He's losing this round and this fight, and he decides, I'm just going to start throwing. And as he came forward and just start throwing with reckless abandon, Turner just flat gasses out. He takes a beating in the second round. He takes a beating in the third round. He ends up losing the fight to Dan Hooker. That was the exact same scenario that happened at UFC 300 against Renato Moicano. The first round, he's not throwing a whole lot. It's almost as if he knows, ooh, I'm just going to be real patient now and just throw the shots that are going to land and do the big damaging blows. But he's getting outworked in the first round. Thing is, he does drop Renato Moicano. Doesn't fall into the ground, turns around, walks away, really trying to conserve that gas tank. And in the second round, he flat gasses. Oh, it's kind of the knock on him. So he's 6'3" with a 77-inch reach at 155 pounds. Huge proportions. So then you go back and you look at it 2 fights back. It's like, oh, he's having trouble making the weight. Again, he's 29 years old now. He's filling out this frame. He missed against Dan Hooker coming in at 158. His next two fights, he does make weight, sure. But again, it seems to be that all of his wins, Bobby Green, first round, Brad Riddell, first round, Jamie Malarkey, 46 seconds into round two, Uros Medic, first round, Brock Weaver, that one he got him in the second round, Josh Kulabau, second round. He actually has no big significant wins other than Bobby Green, I suppose. Point being though, he's got to get you done right away. These elite guys can withstand that first round beating and come back. And I think that's the key here with Ignacio Bahamondes. He's got 21 a pro fight veteran, 27 years old. He's never been knocked out. He never been knocked down. He takes a lot of punches, I'll admit, way more than you'd
Mm-hmm.
like to see him take, but he got a hell of a Chilean chin on him, dude. Like this guy can get into a gunfight and take the damage. His own issue is that guys take him down. Like if you want to beat Ignacio Bahamondes, you strike with him a little bit, take him down. I don't necessarily think that that's on the table here for Jalen Turner, although he has a good ground game. Offensively, he's not really all that, busy with his own offensive takedowns.
And he'll gas.
And he'll gas if he's constantly trying to take down Bahamondes. Now, what Jalen Turner's gift is 6'3", 77-inch reach. And almost everybody he fights is 3 inches shorter than him, but not Bahamondes. Bahamondes is also 6'3" with a 75-inch reach. That number on the reach, 75, it's important because Jalen Turner, His entire career is all guys between 70 and 73. The two times he fought guys with 75-inch reaches was his debut in the UFC where he got knocked out versus Vicente Luque and his fight with Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker has a 74-inch reach and sorry, 75. And you see when he steps in on Hooker, he's getting hit. He doesn't have that long man advantage that he has over him, and that's where he struggles. His advantage is kind of neutralized, so to speak. I think with Ignacio Bahamondes, 75-inch reach, he's still giving up 2 inches. Same height, similar type of reach. Both guys fight long. Bahamondes has got cardio for days. He's got durability for days. He's going to take a beating in the first round. Well, it'll be competitive, but I can see Turner winning the first round as he oftentimes does. That second round, that third round, where he's going to start slowing down, I feel like that's where Bahamondes is there to really take over. So you've got two guys, similar age, similar proportions, both want to strike. I'm really banking on the durability of the one guy and the cardio of the other guy, what we've seen in Bahamondes. Turner, meanwhile, you know he's got poor cardio, but keep this in mind. Knocked out once as an amateur, 4 times as a pro. He's been knocked out in 11 seconds. He's been TKO'd twice in the first round, and he's coming off a TKO loss to Hanato Moicano. So we're going with durability. One guy's never been knocked down. The other guy's been knocked out 5 times. We're going with cardio. Ignacio, again, they can both put up big numbers. They can both land clean strikes. I just feel like slowly as it progresses, I got Ignacio. Now I'll admit, Ignacio has no real good wins. In fact, what's his best win? It don't pale in comparison to the guys that his opponent's been facing. So yeah, there's a big talent gap there, so to speak. So when it first got announced, I was like, Ignacio will be the underdog, and it's an underdog worth taking. But that's not the case. He's slight favorite. It's
Yeah,
even money at best.
it's
There's
pretty
no
much
real
pick 'em.
edge there. It'll be another one of these violent back and forth. Both guys have their moment type fights. But you could probably bet Ignacio Bahamondes after the first round and get a better price on him, and then hope he just does his thing and keeps swinging rounds 2 and 3, and Turner slows down. Watch weigh-ins. The Turner weight cut, I think, is what's going to be key here and what's going to throw him down. And similar to last week, I think I may have taken Danny Barlow on the show. Then Paul and I did the weigh-in show, and it was like, jump off that bridge, guy, because he looked awful. And Sam Patterson was huge. It was huge. Turner's another one of these guys that's like monitor the weigh-ins. He's struggling to make weight. People will say, "Oh, well, Ignacio Bahamondes missed weight one time." Yeah, one time it's his UFC debut, and he fought on the Contender Series at 170 and then dropped down to 55 for his UFC debut. Missed weight in that fight by like a pound. Since then, yeah, he's got a good nutritionist, good team around him, filling out. 2 years younger, the weight's still easier for him to make. Turner, you're really starting to see, I think, him struggle on the scale and therefore gas out in these performances. And this probably is going to be another one of them. Hot, ruckus crowd in Las Vegas. You know, the noise, the anxiety, the stress level, it'll all rise up, and I'm expecting Turner to slow down again. So give me Ignacio Bahamondes to get the victory.
Yeah. I tend to agree, but I totally agree with the fact that it's like why lay minus 120 right now? Like it's definitely on the table. I suppose that like Ignacio could land a massive strike early in the fight. Some sort of scramble happens, and it's like crazy things happen in this sport all the time. But it's like Jalen Turner is just such a tough guy to deal with in round one. So it's like I just don't see myself getting to a situation where I'm gonna bet a minus 120 that's probably gonna be plus 180 plus 200 after round one because and like Turner is very very live to get like a 10-8 in round one. Like this is a fight that like a draw is on the table. It's been a while since we've had any sort of draws. But yeah, you go back, you look at like Ignacio, some of his performances that went the full distance, and it's just like he kind of just is ramping up against Trey Ogden. Um 26 significant strikes, 30 significant strikes, round three, 43 significant strikes.
Yeah, that Roosevelt
Um,
Roberts one was dirty because he's just dogging him the whole time. There's like 3 seconds left, and he lets him up to spinning wheel kick him in the face. It's like, damn. And he's 6'3" at 155. Like the fact that he can push a pace being that big is he's not the cleanest striker going. And again, he's fought a lot lesser quality guys, but he's given a good account of himself and definitely building his resume up in there.
yeah, the volume was like pretty consistent throughout that 33, 38, and 34, but he still had tons of energy at the end of round three. Unfortunately, when you look around at like, Bahamondes round three props, they're like 10-1, 12-1. Not entirely all that generous. They're being a lot less like books or sports books in general just don't want to get got, it feels like, on a lot of those like to win in round. props these days. Like those things seem to be getting shorter and shorter every single week. Yeah, Rongju, same thing. Third round finish. Round one, I mean, he came out like a bat out of hell in that fight, though, too. I think it really, yeah, it comes down to chin, durability, volume, cardio. Bahamondes is the play for me as well. But yeah, not rushing to lay a minus number next to his name because I know Jalin Turner is incredibly dangerous for the first 7.5 minutes. Moving on down, we've got Iasmin Lucindo taking on Amanda Lemos. Lucindo minus 135 favorite. Lemos can be after plus 110. Who you got?
Yeah, I don't really got a great angle on this one. You got women's MMA with Amanda Lemos. She's definitely the bigger puncher of the two, more power in her strikes. But at 37 years old, a lot of it's just like waiting for her opponent, landing that big shot, and then hoping that that's going to sway the judges. She's got no ground game. That's always been the way to expose her, is that literally from the get-go, Jessica Andrade hit her with a standing arm triangle choke. It's like, oh, you don't see that very often, but it's poor grappling. Zhang Weili exposed her big time on the ground, landed 6 takedowns and outstruck her 163 to 24. She's got no real get-up game. She's got no real deep takedown defense. So, her last fight with Verna Jandiroba is much of the same. Like, you're waiting the entire time for Verna to shoot, so as a result, she's not offensively getting anything off. And then as soon as Verna does physically clasp her hands together, she peels her to the ground, sets up shop on top, and then eventually submits her. So Lemos at 37 isn't going to necessarily be getting all that much better. Whereas Lucindo, even though I don't really rate her all that much, she's 23. She's 14 years younger. She definitely does have a speed advantage. Numerically, by the numbers, she throws a little more volume than Lemos, but she's been mixing in takedowns to her last couple of fights. Her UFC debut against Yasmin Yergui, I mean, it was high volume. They both throw down. Unfortunately, she ends up losing the fight. It's since then, she takes down Brogan Walker 4 times. She took down Polyana Vienna twice. Vienna's a fake BJJ world champion black belt, but all the same, she took her down and she submitted her. That's got to count for something. Took down for Karolina Kovacevic twice, doubled her up on the significant stats, and then took down Marina Rodriguez 3 times her last time out. I think again, numerically, she can keep up pace with Amanda Lemos. Lemos might be landing the more damaging blows, but I feel like Lucinda will probably just land a few more of them. Be a little bit faster, be a little bit snappier, big cage to work with, use space, let her come to you, land a few combinations, land those leg kicks, but mix in those takedowns. Like that's the way to beat Lemos. That's the way to secure scorecards off the judges. Finishing her, yeah, this is gonna be over. Let's be real. Probably a fight that goes all 3 rounds. But again, Lucinda's got to make sure she's doing enough in 2 of those 3 rounds to comfortably get it. So mixing in the takedowns would be the key here. And again, I do think that that speed advantage should help, just being a little bit younger, a little bit more, you know, energetic, let's say. Whereas Lamos is going to line her up, going to look to line her up with those big blows. But again, we've seen her get outworked in the past and then really have to come down to scoring a knockdown or a knockout. If she's constantly having to worry about the threat of the takedown, she's going to freeze up again and not let her hands go. Now, Lucindo ain't no Verna Jandiroba, and she ain't no Zhang Weili. So the takedowns probably are not going to be as easy as those other girls got them, but that has to be the winning game plan. I just hope she sticks to it. So, yeah, this thing's going to be low down on the list. It's a close competitive fight. It's lined as such, but I feel like Lucindo's youth and athleticism should prevail ever so slightly.
I think you'd be surprised, Cody, compared to like what the totals on these usually are, for a women's strawweight fight. Um, fight goes to decision is that cool bet right now. Fight goes the distance minus 227. Yes.
Yeah, so
We're used to seeing minus 500s, and somebody out
that's
there
funny.
at some of the other books is betting the fight ends inside the distance, or at least it's moving out there. I'm with you. I kind of think it really comes down to wrestling here. Lucindo gets the takedown, stay out of trouble. Maybe somebody's seen something um, in the submission skills of Lemos when Lucindo is able to take her down. Like that's what's going to cause her problems. But like I don't know, we saw Yasmin Lucindo take down Polyana Vienna, who I know is like very one dimensional. But the one thing she does do well is throw up submissions, and like there was pretty much zero threat in there. She did get a finish herself there. Um, but yeah, Lemos has been tough. Is tough. Went the full distance with Mackenzie Dern on the ground. I think, yeah, if Lucindo's able to get takedowns going, I think we see just kind of rinse and repeat somewhat boring decision where Lucindo edges out. Maybe makes up for landing the least or the less damaging blows of the two of them just with some control time, top control. I like the fight goes to a decision there. I like the overs in that spot. You know me, I like unders, so kind of surprised that that's maybe they know something we don't know, Cody. Maybe they know something we don't know. All right, we got Mauricio Ruffy taking on King Green, minus 455 for Ruffy. How are you pronouncing this guy's name?
Yeah, I usually say Ruffy, but because he's
And
Brazilian, it's probably Huffy like a bike. But
Huffy.
then it just, I don't know. Is he a Huffy half-ton bicycle, or is he a roofie like a date rape drug? Like no matter
Yeah,
how you
that's
spin it, it's just not that great of a name. Um,
it is a risky one completely. So here's the thing with this fight. Bobby Green, well, what we used to know about him way back in the day, and this was many years ago at this point. Um, he's taken so many fights. It is what it is. But the guy was super. We used to back him because he was super durable. Was able to go the full distance. Volume's always been great from boxing is good. And like I guess Huffy is coming off of that Lawn Top performance. Lawn Top came in fat. It was a hell of a lot more competitive than most
minus
people
900.
expected.
Yeah.
Than the odds indicated, anything like that. You go back and you watch, especially in round one. It's like some of those shots that Lawn Top ate. I don't know if the current iteration of Bobby Green can take that heat anymore. We've seen it time and time again. Um, Turner got him out of there in round one. Drew Dober knocked him out in round two. Makachev is probably the one that like started the whole unraveling of like Bobby Green's chin. Bobby likes hanging out in boxing range, pretending that when he does get hit, that it doesn't hurt. I don't know, man. The way where he stands and the stuff that's going to be coming back from Huffy, it seems like a Huffy knockout. Now, Huffy minus 455 is definitely a lot more juice than I'm willing to pay for it, to be perfectly honest. But like Huffy at like by knockout, I have seen around for like plus 100, like right around like the evens range, and I feel like that is getting propped up by the lawn top performance, and lawn top's durability may just be like outrageously good because some of those shots he took early, yeah, Ruffy by KO plus 105 at cool bet. That's how I'm going to approach this fight because I do think that where Bobby Green wants to do most of his work, he's just going to be eating shots from the longer, faster, more dynamic striker at this point in his career. So, Ruffy knockout. What about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with all those points. Like Bobby Green, perennial fan favorite, been around the block many of times, fought in some of the best contenders within the division. But he's got this would be his 51st pro MMA fight, and he's 38 years old, and his whole style is all based on reflexes. Like how many other guys use a shoulder roll in the UFC? Pretty much is Bobby Green, but he has to rely on that ability to get out in time, to be able to step off, to be able to get that shoulder up in time in order to block the shot. The more you do it, the more guys are going to start to figure it out. Bobby Green's case, he's a great entertainer, but he's definitely vulnerable to get hit. There was a time where it's like only the finest guys in the world will knock him out. Dustin Poirier knocks him out under 3 minutes into the first round. As of late, though, not saying he's got durability issues per se, but heavy power punches are going to get his attention. Paul mentioned Drew Dober ends up knocking him out. Jalin Turner ends up knocking him out. People that will remember the Jalin Turner fight, or feel free to go back and watch it, why did they not stop this fight? Like he took a beating against Jalin Turner in a fight that could have been stopped well before. They let him take like way too much damage, and then kudos to him. He comes back to beat Jim Miller, but that UFC fight with Jim Miller, like by the numbers, it's like this is non-competitive. Like Bobby Green outstruck Jim Miller like 186 to 50 or something of that nature. But when you watch it, Jim's hurting him. Jim's hurt with the 50 strikes that Jim's landing. He's bloodied. He's walking forward. He's landing a few shots here and there. And Bobby just looks massively uncomfortable. Again, there's going to be a point where it's like he's not that effective anymore. He's a very tricky fighter, but as some of that elusiveness starts to wear off, these young, hungry, faster, heavier hitters are gonna break through his defense, and then I'm not so sure that his chin's gonna be able to take it as well. So with Mauricio Ruffy, I faded him. I faded him his last time out against James Longtop because anybody that'll listen to me for 2 minutes talk about Peruvian guys, they're so durable, Paul, and they have really good cardio. And I figured that would be the key to beating a guy like Ruffy. Let him blow and exert himself out early, and then take over later. Numerically, James Longtop gave him everything he could handle. Some people were saying, hey, you know, he clearly won a round, and if you're losing a round to James Longtop, you're really not all that good. I think they're downplaying how unbelievably tough and good and well put together Lawn Top is for a 15 or 25-minute affair. Like solid cardio, solid durability. Those same shots on Bobby Green, I do think that they're putting him over. And fighting out of the fighting nerds, you know that they're going to have an excellent game plan put together. Use your speed advantages, use your power advantages, get this guy to come to you, and then take him out with something. So I got Ruffy to get the job done as well. Maybe the line's a little bit wide out, but it's not wide enough for me to take that shot on Bobby Green at this stage.
Fair enough. All right, we got Curtis Blaydes taking on Rizvan Kuniev, minus 323 for Blaydes, plus 260 for Kuniev. Who you got?
Yeah, so the knock on Blaydes is that even though we always talk about how he's probably the best wrestler of the division, and I do believe that, probably is the best wrestler of the division, his durability is not exactly the best. And so all of these fights will come down to him either scoring multiple takedowns and lying on top of you or him just getting chin checked immediately. Like him versus Tom Aspinall in the rematch, he's knocked out a minute into the fight. His fight with Sergey Pavlovich, 3 minutes into the fight. That fight with Derek Lewis, you'll remember he scored multiple takedowns in the first. And then the second, he just stands in front of Lewis for 2 seconds. That's three knockout losses. His rematch of Francis Ngannou, 45 seconds into the first round. That's four knockout losses. And then obviously the first time he fought Francis, his eyes swelled shut. Wasn't actually a knockout. Now listen, dude, you're fighting the biggest, baddest heavyweights on the planet. They're all power punchers. Sure, a guy can knock you out in a minute. It's not the end of the world. But Blaydes' own offense is based on fighting for 15 minutes. Like he's actually a guy that pushes pace on you and you weaponizes his cardio for a big man to drag you into some deeper waters. Therefore, he's likely going to have to fight you for 15 minutes, which is going to give you more than ample opportunity to catch him with something at some point. Now, this Rizvan Kunaev, I'm not impressed with him. He is 31 years old, as a heavyweight that is very young, 6'4". You know, he's got the proportions. He's a big, thick guy. But when you watch him, it's like he's very much just like lumbering, you know, a little bit flat-footed, likes to swang and bang. He's got losses to Darko Stoicic and Justin Big Titty Willis, two UFC veterans that never really got anywhere with it. And then back on the regional scene, it's like in Russia, he can beat up lumbering heavyweights that don't have or offer up much skill or resistance. He fights on PFL against Renan Ferreira. That would have been like his nice win, I suppose. And he ends up testing positive for anabolic steroids, drostanolone, metanolone, boldenone, 1919 variant of nostranolone as well, and
Mm.
gets like a 2-year ban. So here's a guy that didn't really look all that good to begin with, picks up finally a career best win in PFL, and is like on multiple anabolic steroids, serves a suspension. They bring him back to the contender series because keep in mind, he fought in the contender series once, won, and they were like, we're not signing you. You don't look very good. UFC is desperate for heavyweights. Dana signs everybody that wins in the contender series, and they passed on him. Pops for steroids. They bring him back on the contender series where he beats Hugo Cunha by first round knee to the body. Again, he's a banger. He can land some decent strikes. I think because he's a big guy, if he lands on you, he's going to create some damage. And against Blaydes, a guy that's kind of a little bit chinny, certainly that poses some problems when you're betting a minus 350 Curtis Blaydes. But the path of victory here is just lean on him and take him down and really grind on him. I think that's all the things that Curtis Blaydes will look to do and look to implement in this fight. So you're going to have to be shooting early and often, but Kuniev is going to start to gas, man. He's going to start to tire the more he's forced to carry the weight, the more pressure you put on him, the more he's needs to work his way back up and build a base. Just keep leaning on him. Once he tires, I think that's it for him because he's got probably bigger eyes looking towards him now. I don't know that he messes around. I don't know that he takes a bunch of juice. So who knows, man? Who knows? But I just think Curtis Blaydes is going to be able to implement those takedowns in wrestling and win a few of the rounds, get this thing done by decision or maybe a late stoppage. For Kunaev, if he's a clean athlete, he goes back to being average. And if he's average, he's not good enough to beat a top guy like Blaydes.
It all kind of makes sense, I suppose. I mean, it's a massive, like, if you're Kanaev, it's like, that's a pretty massive step up. You're taking on a guy who is like a perennial title challenge title contender, and like you're coming off of what a contender series fight against Hugo Cuna. And he was on contender series before that, got a finish and didn't get signed against Edevan Santos. Um, yeah, can you? It seems like he's a Sanda guy. I see him going around like if you go on his Instagram, he's going around with Ankalaev this week. So I guess they're buddies in some way, shape, or form. I don't know. I'm gonna struggle at the best of times against any sort of heavyweight to get too invested in Curtis Blaydes because I've seen when that chin gets absolutely blown up, but I'm not entirely sure Rizvan is the guy to get the job done in that respect. So I'll side with you on Blaydes as the favorite here, but not sure I'm going to financially get myself too attached to it. We got Josh Van taking on Rei Tsuruya, minus 189 for Van, plus 160 for Tsuruya. Pretty big style clash, I guess, here between the two of these guys. Van looks like, I mean, at least, you go back to the Djorden fight, at least in round one, Djorden's able to find those takedowns, able to find them pretty easily. Rei, that's pretty much all Rei is up to. Rei has really nice entries to the takedowns. He has good control or like decent control and scrambles in those exchanges. Like I was watching him versus Carlos Hernandez, who is a black belt in BJJ. At least round one and round two, he's able to get those takedowns. He set up some decent looking submission attempts and all of that, but like there is zero volume getting thrown out on the feet. And round three, frankly, he loses. I don't know what other people scored that round three, but it's like you go watch that round. It's like Hernandez is the one who spends most of the time on top in that fight or in that third round. There's a little bit scrambling, get back to the feet and that type of thing, but it's like pretty clearly lose that round. Seemed like he had gassed quite a bit. You don't want to be in there gassing against a guy like Josh Van. If Tsuruya doesn't get a submission in the first round, or if he doesn't fix that cardio issue, then he's going to be in for a world of hurt against Van, who gets better as the rounds typically go on. I like Van. I like Van late, but Tsuruya is probably going to have some success getting takedowns early, and it really comes down to whether Tsuruya is able to find a submission in those early exchanges. Because once they get into round two, round three, the heat's going to get turned up, and this isn't Carlos Hernandez anymore. There's going to be a whole bunch more volume coming back on the feet. So Van's the pick for me. What about you?
Yeah, I'm actually struggling with this one. I feel like Rei Tsuruya is going to be an upset pick this week. But
Good.
do I pull the trigger on him personally, or do I just look to shift Van down the list? I'm not so sure. But yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's a flyweight fight, so you do expect this thing to be competitive to a certain level. The thing with Josh Van is that he's a pure striker. When you watch him on the regional scene before he comes to the UFC, he struggles with his grappling. Like it's a work in progress, sure, but that's the key to probably beating him is if you want to stand on him like the guys from Myanmar, he can strike all day long. Lots of pace, lots of volume. Yes, Charles Johnson did knock him out. But for the most part, it's like this guy's got a hell of a chin on him as well. It's that his ability to come on late and really push the envelope on guys usually breaks them down. But he's a slow starter. He lost the first round against a lot of these guys. Felipe Bunez beat him in the first round. Like Paul mentioned with Cody Durden his last time out, was able to get those takedowns early. It's that as he really starts to build up momentum on you, that's when you fatigue. If we look at Rei Tsuruya for what he did against Carlos Hernandez, then yeah, you're right. He probably starts off well and then probably fatigues. The difference though is that you got a Josh Van here that's got 6 fights in the UFC versus a Rei Tsuruya that was his UFC debut, his last fight. So you can look at it and say, well, he doesn't look all that good there. At the time, he's 21 years old and he's making his UFC debut. This is almost a year later. It's not quite a year later, but he hasn't fought since June of last year. So we're quickly approaching on the 12-month mark. And I would just say that hopefully this kid, still only 22 years old, has really focused on developing and maturing and working on his cardio. But really the key here is that he's got an excellent back take. And I feel like Joshua Van's someone that's known to give up his back. He got taken down twice by Cody Durden in that first round, gave up 3 minutes of top control. The difference is Cody Durden gassed. If Rei Tsuruya does not gas, he may be able to backpack him in the second round as well. And then all of a sudden you're fighting in a hole. You're down 2 rounds. Yeah, he hasn't landed no ground and pound. Yeah, the numbers are super low, but if he's on your back or on top of you for two of the
Mm,
first 3 rounds, now you need that KO in the third round. And with Tsuruya, he's 3-0. He's never been knocked out. He might just be able to stall it out a little bit.
that's
When I
fair.
watch tape on Josh Van, I do see him lose some of these scrambles. I do see his opponents get to his back, but then they start to fatigue. If that doesn't happen with Ray, I'm not so sure. As much as we all like Van, if the matchup was Van versus Tatsuya Taira, who would you have? Like almost certainly Tatsuya Taira, because you know he gonna end up on the back. With Ray, I'm not so sure. I don't think he's as good as Taira. Certainly, he's 3 years younger than Tatsuya Taira, so there still is some room to improve. But being that he's been off for 10 months, I feel like he does show up as a better version of himself, a little bit better shape. He's gonna wait for Van. First round, Van's a super slow starter. Tons of guys win the first round against him. So win that first round. That second round, as Van comes to life, as his strikes start to connect, as he starts to hit that flow state, take him out of it by getting a takedown, by getting on top. Ray's grappling, his grappling's good. His offensive wrestling, yeah, leaves something to be desired. But 3 takedowns over Carlos Hernandez means something. He got 8 over Mark Klamaco on road to the UFC. In fact, all 3 of his fights on road to the UFC and his fight in the UFC, his debut, he is securing takedowns in all of them. It's that very much so he's going to have to not gas out here because Joshua Van is a different animal than Carlos Hernandez, and he's going to be scrapping that entire time. I, you know, if you're looking for underdogs, then to me, Ray's one of them. But I don't know that you force it. You don't need to force anything. So I'm gonna use him as a PRP pick. Like it's not the most confident thing I got going, but I feel like if one of these favorites is gonna screw me, maybe it's Van. I feel like last week we did a pretty good job of identifying like the Nasrat Hakparas fight. It's gonna be a close fight either way. Hopefully you end up on the right side of it, but there was value there. This I feel like is gonna be a close fight. Both guys will have moments. Grappling could prevail, and I'm getting some value here. So I'm gonna go with Rei Tsuruya, but it's not something that I absolutely love.
All right, we got Arman Petrosyan taking on Bruno Ferreira, minus 149 for Petrosyan, plus 130 for Ferreira. Who you got?
Yeah, when I die, I'm definitely gonna have Armin Petrosyan be one of my pallbearers, so he could let me down one last time, Paul Shaughnessy. I really like this guy. I really like Armin Petrosyan. He's hell on wheels. He's throwing nasty volume all the time, stays in your face. He's got kicks better than a soccer player, like just brutalizes your legs. He got heart, got great intangibles, but he cannot grapple, and he's just not been getting these wins, man. He's not been getting these wins, so. Oh man, okay, the Carl Baraha one, I think we all had Baraha on that. Just because he really can't grapple, so that's a bad matchup for him. But I totally had him against Rodolfo Vieira and Shara Magomedov. The Rodolfo fight being that, make him work, stuff some takedowns, keep the fight standing, and now, man, his takedown defense just really ain't up to it. So Rodolfo gets him down, Rodolfo subs him. And so with Shara Magomedov, I backed him there as well. Shara's got one eye. He's really not an elite level striker per se. And my boy Armin Petrosyan wins the first round. He's looking good. And then he absorbs a double spinning back fist. Woof. What a way to lose a fight. My God. And Shara, the guy with one eye, does have 2 arms. Both of them connect. Bam, bam. And that's the end of Petrosyan. So he's an all action guy. He's willing to fight you in the pocket. He's willing to fight you at range. He's not risk adverse. Like he's constantly throwing himself in the fire. He's got a weak ground game. He's just coming off a knockout loss. I wouldn't say he's chinny, but he took a lot of damage there. He's got a nice little win over Gregory Robocop Rodriguez, but he had his face shattered in that one too. Nasty broken nose. He absorbs a lot of damage, and the more you do that, the more you're just leaving yourself open to either getting knocked out or that durability eventually just running out. Bruno Ferreira, that's really all he's got going. The guy's got some big old power. If he lands on you, he could maybe put you out. He also has a win over Gregory Rodriguez, but whereas Petrosyan's got a split decision win, you see this big old lumbering man, Bruno Ferreira, just knock him out. He's got knockouts over Phil Hawes. He's got a knockout over Justin Stolfus with a spinning back elbow. Like this is the kind of fight that can go really bad for me really fast. But he's a bit of a cardio, that's his deficiency, right? I was gonna call him a cardio pig, but that sounds pretty rude. Main thing is that the longer you can push this guy, he's got big strikes. He's well put together, but he's gonna start to slow. He's gonna start to fatigue. Petrosyan's coming off a knockout loss. I don't like that, but his ability to create a fight, a fire fight, really push on your opponent, come forward. With Brunno, Bruno's scored one takedown in his last six recorded fights. He's got a takedown accuracy of 16%. If that ain't on the table and he's not taking down Petrosyan, Petrosyan's going to outwork him. Could be a tough first round. Second round will be better. Third round, we pull away and we seal this thing. So, Arman Petrosyan, let me down one more time, buddy. But hopefully you don't. Hopefully you just go out there and do what I know you're capable of doing, and that's tire this Brazilian guy out and put some wear and tear on him.
It all makes sense, Cody. I mean, how do you beat Armin Petrosyan? I mean, I guess he did get knocked out by Shara Bullet last
Yeah, that was
time out.
crazy though, man. God damn.
That was crazy, but I mean, Ferreira is kind of a crazy guy too. But like Ferreira, we look at him all the time, and you're like, what's this guy's biggest problem? It's like kind of seems like a welterweight. Like he's giving up a lot of size in most of his opponent against most of his opponents. I mean, just being able to go to decision against Kyle Baralio. It's kind of impressive when you look back at that in hindsight now. Last kind of guy he took on that was a bit of a brawler was AJ Dobson. In this same light, I would say. And I mean, Dobson's a lot bigger and everything like that, but that was a fight that Petrosyan won cleanly despite getting taken down three times. Um, yeah, I mean, Ferreira's last time out, getting finished in round three against Abus Magomedov, getting absolutely dominated in grappling exchanges there. He either lands an absolute nuke of a strike, which Arman, outside of the double spinning back fist or whatever, has been historically quite durable. He either does that or he kind of wilts away. It's like he's very much a front runner. Wouldn't hate it. Wouldn't hate like waiting, looking for live opportunities instead in this fight because like Petrosyan's not much of a potent finisher by any stretch of the imagination. Most of the biggest damaging shots from Ferreira will be probably in the first 5 minutes. But I'm with you, Petrosyan. Use that length. Just don't leave yourself open for the absolute bomb there, and should be able to come away with a victory here. We'll not be backing Bruno Ferreira. That's for damn sure. Whether I get to Petrosyan, that's I'll wait for weigh-ins and everything at this point in the week. Doesn't seem like I'm going to be beating much on the market. That's for sure. We got Djorden Santos taking on Ozzy Diaz minus 189 for Santos, plus 160 for Diaz. Santos on the contender series, he was like a 4-1 underdog. Big time dog in that spot against Will Curry. And I mean, he showed, I think a lot of it is like, his record seemed like your classic, like Brazilian padded record. Hadn't really taken on anybody of, super high level by any stretch of the imagination. The guy seemed pretty durable in your face. Nothing's really flashy or pretty or anything like that. Decent sprawl and brawl ability. And just kind of like pressure, and made Will Curry wilt in that fight. It was very, very convincing one way action. Ozzy Diaz, on the other hand, like he's kind of a killer, be killed kind of guy. Obviously, both of his fights in the octagon / in Dana White's contender series, he's been killed against massive absolute beasts. In Zhang Min Yang and Joe Pyfer. And this fight is at 185. Maybe that helps Ozzy Diaz a little bit, but it's like I went back, watched a few of his LFA fights, and it's like even the fights he wins, it's like he gets rocked against somebody at some point. It just seems like over and over every single fight. And like one of the fights that he got absolutely rocked in was against like this 40-year-old dude in LFA, not all that long ago. I don't know. The guy just seems way too volatile. The number has been coming in. People are betting Ozzy Diaz. Frankly, like if I get what I got out of Djorden Santos against Will Curry last time out, I'll bet on that guy at short of minus 200. So, Santos is the pick for me. What about you?
Yeah, I got the same thing. On a personal level, I'm an Ozzy Diaz fan. You watch any of his fights, it's a good time. He's exchanging, he's throwing down, but yet you see the exact same thing I'm seeing is that He's there to get hit. He's got durability issues, and he's not capable of winning the fight, but he may get hurt and need to come from behind. When you
Mhm.
look at, he's got two losses as an amateur. Both of them are within the distance. He had once been submitted by future UFC light heavyweight title challenger Dominic Reyes in just 27 seconds. It's the losses as a pro. Santiago Diaz, his first pro loss, knocks him out in 15 seconds. Joe Pyfer on the Contender Series knocks him out minute 39 of round two, and then his UFC debut against Ming Yang Zhang knocked out 225 of the first round. He's 34 years old. That's late to be making your UFC debut. They give you pretty well the bottom end of opponent in Ming Yang Zhang, and you get knocked out in the first round. Your fights on LFA, you're getting rocked against guys that couldn't cut it in the UFC, like Bavon Lewis or Moses Murrieta, or, just he's kind of at that level. He's very exciting. When he wins, he knocks you out, usually in the first round. But if you can extend this guy out and put some pressure on him, I do feel like he's there to get folded. Jordan Santos is actually undefeated at 185 pounds. You'll watch some of these fights. It's like, oh, he wins a split decision over Miguel Firmino a couple years back. He lost to Christian Torres for Titan FC. But those are both at 205. Like at 185, that's probably where he should be at. He's way more comfortable. And although he's lacking that clean power to take out Ozzy Diaz, I feel like he could really just put him through the pace. Diaz is 6'4". He's 34 years old and he's dropping down 20 pounds back down to 85. I feel like the more pace and pressure you can put on this guy, he's going to tire. Once he tires, he's going to get sluggish. Once he gets sluggish, even a light puncher might be able to put him away. I'll admit, Jordan Santos had more finishing abilities. I'd be riding high on him. The fact
Mhm.
that he's more of a decision guy himself and he's taking on a big potent guy in Ozzy Diaz could be tricky. But I just don't think Diaz has got the gas or the cardio to really persevere into the later stages of these fights. So I got to go with Jordan Santos to get the victory. Maybe a good live betting spot as well. But with Ozzy Diaz, he's been knocked out in 15 seconds. So if he has a bad first round, I wouldn't say that's it for him. He's capable of fighting his way back into fights, but you're going to see that few and far between now that he's fighting at a higher level and he's a little bit older. So give me Santos as well.
We got Carlos Leal taking on Alex Morono, minus 769. Biggest favorite on the card is Carlos Leal. Alex Morono could be had for plus 550. Your thoughts on this one, Code?
Yeah, I guess it really comes down to like, is Carlos Leal the next Basel Hafez, right? Whereas like he comes into the UFC and he loses a really spirited UFC debut against a good guy, right? And now it's like he's everybody's baby. Because keep in mind, Carlos Leal's not that good. Like we've seen this guy fight for a bunch over in PFL. He missed weight against Chris Brown. Chris Brown, obviously, most notable wins probably Rihanna. So like the fact that you split a decision with him isn't great. Loses to Sadibu C twice. He missed weight against Brown. He missed weight in the rematch against Sadibu C. He seems to be like a bigger 170, struggles to make the weight. And yet at 185, he's way largely out of place. So he signed short notice to come into the UFC, takes on Renat Fakhretdinov. He's a plus 185 underdog. And even though he lost the fight, and I had Fakhretdinov, so I'm really glad that he did lose the fight, he beat the crap out of Renat Fakhretdinov. So there was a lot that you couldn't like out of that performance. He overperformed. He did good. He fought as a valiant underdog. And now all of a sudden, everybody wants a piece of him, but he's still very limited. He's a power puncher, let's say, but I mean, a little bit stagnant with his strikes from time to time. Doesn't overexert himself. The weight cuts are a little bit tough. You got a guy with one fight in the UFC taking on a guy in Alex Morono what's got 22 fights in the
Mm-hmm.
UFC. So there's a lot of experience there and there's a lot of things that you could worry about. But yeah, for my money's worth, like Morono just seems like he's at the end of the rope. Like he's 34, which is not the oldest thing in the world, but he's got a lot of fights under his belt and he runs his own academy and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, lots of stand up, and you just start to see him accrue more damage in these fights, but ultimately just slow down. His last time out against Daniel Rodriguez, again, he absorbs a lot of damage. His fight with Nico Price, keep in mind this, Daniel Rodriguez is near 40. Nico Price is in his mid 30s. Court McGee is 40. Tim Means is 40. If you want to give him those guys, he'll be able to hang with them all day long. But, you know, Leal's 30. He's a Brazilian banger. He did look good in that debut. He does figure to keep getting a little bit better. Speed-wise, Leal is faster than Morono. Power-wise, Leal has more power than Morono. Morono could try to take him down. That'd be a decent game plan. But let's be real. This is Alex Morono we're talking about. Utilizing his grappling game has never really been a key element of his game. So he's likely going to be a sitting duck, eating the bigger, heavier shots. And Leal on a full camp could maybe do even better than he did against Renat Fakhretdinov, and that should be more than enough to beat Alex Morono. So I do agree Leal wins this fight. I do agree he's the favorite, but considering he's a 7-1 favorite, 6-1 favorite, that range, I don't know that I put him on the top tick. It doesn't do much for me, and it's still a fight that does have some question marks that need to be answered. So I play him, but I don't know that he's like, take all my money. He's the go-to guy this week. But yeah, biggest favorite on the card. I get it. That's more of a Morono fade than people really like Carlos Leal.
Yeah, there's no way I'm laying minus 700 on on Leal here. We watched him too much over his PFL days, and I agree. It's like Morono has been pretty ugly. It's like even like his most recent win, the Court McGee one. Like look at the stats, look at control time, you look at everything.
Yeah.
The only people who really scored that fight for Alex Morono were like his mom and the two judges, or and the three judges cage side. To be perfectly honest, so yeah, one of the stranger scorecards all the way around. I mean, McGee, I guess, didn't really do enough on the feet, but that was he was a massive favor, minus 360 against Court McGee, and frankly, probably should have lost. The last half decent by the numbers, at least performance. I guess is Buckley in hindsight, because like Buckley's went on and done great things since then. Um, but yeah, his gas tank just kind of falls off an absolute cliff every single time we're out there. Like against Nico Price, it was just like I remember I had like fight ends inside the distance in that one. That fight was so tilting because like both of those guys were just so wobbly legged, but like there's a certain point in fights where you're like, this finish isn't going to happen because both of these guys are far too gassed to cause any sort of damage to each other at this point. That's kind of how it played out there. Um, yeah, Leal looked good against Renat, but like didn't look like an absolute world beater, and he's getting priced as a world beater. I mean, we'll see weigh-ins, everything like that. I don't think Morono as a like 5-1 underdog is the worst bet you could make on this card. So
It's honestly not, yeah.
no, like plus 550, it's just like, okay, take my money. Like I'll pay your fish toll. Um, yeah, you don't have to lose too much to find out if it's competitive. Leal probably wins, but does he win 90% of or 80, 85, 90% of the time? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. So
That's
I
why we'll
mean,
see if he's the next
best
Gosnell
bet is
Lopez.
Morono if you want a pick, whatever that means. I mean, I think Leal wins. I think Morono is long, very, very long in the tooth at this point. But Morono, we've seen time and time again with so many guys. Like his striking style is so awkward that there have been plenty of guys over the course of history that have like kind of struggled. Where you thought that they would have like a big striking advantage against them, and they kind of like he's just so awkward, and like his shots come from weird angles and stuff that it's like it's a little off-putting. The fights end up being a lot closer than anticipated.
Well,
So
the other
it's a
thing too
dog
that's
shot
worth
for me.
yeah, the other thing too that's worth keeping in mind is that with the fight with Leal versus Renat Fakhretdinov, what was most impressive is that Leal stuffed all the takedowns. Like this is Renat Fakhretdinov that took Dalby down 5 times. He took down Brian Battle 7 times. Like he couldn't take down Leal. That was impressive. Here's the thing, Renat Fakhretdinov is a trash striker. Like, he's a bad striker. He
100
couldn't
and yeah,
take
109.
Leal down. He landed 109 significant strikes on his own. When you look at him, he landed 45 against Michailidis in 15 minutes. He landed 43 against Brian Battle in 15 minutes. He landed a career high 87 against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, but it was a draw because he completely gassed himself out and damn near got KO'd in the third round. Dalby, he completely gassed out after landing 68 significant strikes. And against Leal, gassed the whole time, swinging like a fool, and he actually outlanded him and outstruck him in a lot of spots. So yeah, just for 6-1, for 7-1, like is Leal the guy you want to go out hard on this week? Guy that couldn't cut it in PFL. One short nose performance looked good, but how often have we seen that, right? Often enough. So again, I am going to stick with him as a play, but this one's got some bad vibes attached to it for someone who's such a big favorite.
Mairon Santos takes on Francis Marshall, minus 323 for Santos, plus 260 for Marshall. Who you got?
Yeah, Marin Santos, for my money's worth, just looks good. Like before he came to the UFC, big, strong, physical guy, gets on the Ultimate Fighter. I would say he looked the best in the Ultimate Fighter. He beat all the other top guys in the Ultimate Fighter that I thought, oh, Edwin Cooper might have a chance, or certain guys that, that you thought could be a decent prospect. Marin Santos went through them and he won those fights. So I thought he did the best on tough. He gets Keenan awfully in the finals. We load up on him because, again, he looks like he's the best of the cast. He goes out and he gets a solid win. Date of birth, year 2000. This guy's still young, but he's very physical. Good size for the weight class. Does a lot of good things. Good. I like his striking. I like his grappling. Young, solid prospect, but I like me some Marin Santos. Francis Marshall's a guy that I did like, depending on the matchup, I suppose, but he really just hasn't been able to take it to the next level. He's at a Kurt Pellegrino's gym over in New Jersey. Kid does have some decent enough wrestling, good cardio, good pace. But for the most part, it's like he's in a lot of these really close fights against guys that, aren't great, I suppose. What I would say is that, yeah, he beats Connor Matthews on the Contender Series. Connor Matthews is pretty well the lowest level guy in the UFC currently. I'm pretty sure they may have just off released him, but all the same. Marcelo Rojo, he knocks out Rojo. Rojo since been released from the UFC altogether. William Gomez matadored him real well, but Gomez proved to be good. Isaac Dalgarian, I love Dalgarian, but Dalgarian tosses him upside down and eventually just puts him away tail end of the first round. And then his last fight with Dennis Bazookia, I load up on him because I don't think Dennis is all that good. And I'm willing to give you a pass on losing to Gomez and losing to Ozzy Bulgarian. No problem. It's the fight with Bazookia. Like he does score a knockdown, but outside of that, he's getting it worked. And his wrestling, although you can take guys down who are at a low level or guys that have no wrestling, the higher he's going up, he's struggling to get these takedowns down consistently. His jiu-jitsu isn't good enough that once he does get the fight to the ground, it's a fight ender. So even if he does muscle a guy down to the ground and they're able to get back up, I mean, he's right back into striking distance, and that's where he's starting to struggle a little bit. Against Marin Santos, I don't know how you're just going to lean on him the whole time and take him down consecutively. Maybe you're going to try to slow him down by utilizing that, but at some point he breaks free, gets back to range, lands those bigger shots, marches you back, causes you to fight off your back foot. Therefore, your shot is really not as effective and just slowly beats him down. So I got Santos to win a decision here.
Yeah, he looked quite good. Like, the real mark I guess on his professional MMA record is like the Arghetto fight in 2022. But like Argetta, stocky power wrestler. Obviously, he's been in the UFC. We've seen what he's capable of doing. That's a pretty tough ask, I think, for Francis Marshall to be able to put up that type of level of grappling clinic in this spot. Santos just looks so clean, fresh, and composed on the feet. Um, I can see why he's minus 300 favorite. Uh, yeah, going tit for tat with Dennis Bazookia on the feet is not really a good look because Myron Santos hell of a lot more clean at that range. He's not throwing the craziest amount of volume, but he's also just not really getting hit. Like he's just picking his spots and doing it cleanly. Um, I see, yeah, Myron Santos getting the dub here as well. Finally, we got John Castaneda taking on Chris Gutierrez. It's minus 115 for Castaneda at Coolbet. Promo code Dogger Pass 200 turns into another 200. Bet $600. Get all of your money out. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Castaneda minus 115. I mean, he was supposed to fight last week. Gutierrez was supposed to fight on this card this week. Gutierrez, the problem with him is just time and time again. The guy can't wrestle. I know that you were taking a dog shot on the little mutant last week, Douglas Silva de Andrade, but I think that was probably predicated on the idea that it's going to be hard to consistently take Douglas Silva de Andrade down over and over and over, hold him. He's just so muscular and powerful. I don't know. Caston Gutierrez just like every single fight. He slick striker. Don't get me wrong, but it's like he literally can't stop takedowns against just about anybody. Quang Lee took him down twice.
Yeah.
Song Yudong obviously took him down twice. That loss doesn't look nearly as bad. 87 to 77. Like if this fight's on the feet, then it's going to be Chris Gutierrez all day long. I just think Castaneda if he puts that wrestling singlet on and 100% commits himself to that game plan. I think he can edge out a decision here. Going to decision against Daniel Marcos, even though it wasn't pretty, got knocked down in that spot. I get it. Kyung Ho Kang, 111 to 88 in significant strikes, but 3 takedowns. That's the real key.
Yep.
That's all this matchup is right here. Moon Gafarov, who had like a nice win not that long ago as well over our boy Renyu Nakamura. It's like Castaneda went out there, got 3 takedowns, had a whole bunch of control, 4 minutes of control time over the course of that fight. It's like that's the game plan here. Don't hang out at kickboxing range because Chris Gutierrez will definitely eat you up. You strike as long as you have to get in on those hips and edge out rounds. It's a pick 'em for a reason, but give me Castaneda. What about you?
Yeah, Castaneda, I was fading him last week because, again, when you watch his last fight against Daniel Marcos, he is 33 years old now. He does seem to be slowing down a little bit. There was a bit of a regression, and I've just thought, someone's going to be able to go out there and expose him. Maybe this will be the spot. Now you go on versus Chris Gutierrez, and you're thinking, 33 is not that old. He's still got a couple more good performances left in him. Go take down Chris Gutierrez, and as Paul mentioned, that would be the path to victory. Chris, outside of him knocking out Frankie Edgar, I think he knocked out Vince Morales with a head kick as well. But outside of that, he's not a power guy, like at all. Like he's touch and go, touch and go. He can outstrike you numerically by the numbers. He's landing more than you, but you never know what the judges are looking at. The guy that just landed 3 or 4 nice punches and a big leg kick, but it did absolutely nothing to derail his opponent, or the guy that comes and lands, one big single shot and the crowd goes, ooh. That's kind of the issue with Chris Gutierrez. Not only is he a low power guy, but the takedown defense. So you could be outstriking guys, but the one big moment of the round is they catch you with something or they take you down. You're still not above losing the round, and that makes it tough. I was very adamant when he fought Quang Lee that this is Dana White's contender series versus the UFC in a nutshell. Chris Gutierrez has got 10 plus fights in the UFC. His last fight versus Song Yadong, he headlined a fight night card and went 5 rounds with a legitimate fighter in Song Yadong. And now he's fighting a Quang Lee, making his UFC debut. If you can beat Quang Lee, your roster spot is not going to be guaranteed. You're going to be cut. Random guys from the contender series can come in and beat you. You would have just proven it. So I loaded up on him over Quang Lee, unbelievably high. And it was a stressful fight. Like Quang Lee didn't do anything, but he shoots 12 takedowns and ends up getting 2 of them. He gets 4 minutes of control time. You look at the Song Yadong fight. Song Yadong took him down twice. It's twice on 3 attempts, and he gets 11 minutes of control time out of his takedowns. That's the path to victory. And I just feel like John Castaneda, yes, this is a different opponent. Yes, you were supposed to fight last week. It got shifted. There's a lot of uncertainties, and you have to recut weight, and none of that sounds good. But the fact that, yeah, Paul mentioned it, 3 takedowns over Kyung Yo Kang, that ain't easy. 3 takedowns over Win Gafarov, well, that really ain't all that easy either. Like, so, yeah, you need to just be more physical than him. Press him up against the cage, make him work, take him down, get on top of him. You do have the volume to strike with him in spots. You do have a little more power than him. So I'm not saying you need to just get on a leg right from the get-go and cling on to it the entire time. Strike with him. Feel free to strike with him. But as he starts to get comfortable, as he starts to pull away, change levels, dump this guy on his ass, win the fight. So I'll take John Castaneda, but I do think that there's a speed, striking, and cardio advantage for Gutierrez. If he can keep it upright, it's his fight to win. Hopefully, John can mix in a few takedowns. I can see myself flipping this pick as well as I watch weigh-ins, as I watch more tape study, as I do all that. But for the time being, takedown's the name of the game, and I feel like sexy Mexi John Castaneda squeaks one by.
Yeah, that fight's at 145.
Probably because of the short notice nature of shifting it around. And
100%. I think Castaneda may have been in like a catch weight 140 last. I mean, there's just so many moving parts. Obviously, they're just making it a little bit easier for these guys, but I wouldn't expect much of like a size disparity between the two of them. All right, Cody, we're just about out of time, but before we go, hit him with the PRP.
yeah, it seems like it's a lot of favorites this week, but we're gonna go with Magomed Ankalaev, even money, pick off the hop. Justin Gaethje, dog number 1. Ignacio Bahamondes, even money. You don't need dogs if you got even monies. There's value. There's value to be had. But yeah, we're gonna go with Ankalaev, Gaethje, Ignacio Bahamondes, Iasmin, Lucindo, Mauricio Ruffy, Curtis Blaydes, Rei Tsuruya would be technically dog number 2. Arman Petrosyan, Carlos Leal, Mairon Santos. John Castaneda and Jordan Santos. So yeah, 12 fights. And then I mean, Paul, we got to do a regional show tomorrow, but Cage Warriors, EFC, pass on that shit. You'd be better with your money. But Cage
Yeah.
Warriors,
I did
KSW,
tape on
LFA,
EFC.
Octagon, one championship. Also, don't bet Power Slap. Be better with your money. What I'm saying is there's so much going on that maybe you don't take all 12 UFC fights. Maybe you take the ones that you like the most, and then lots of stuff that we can pair it up with.
Yeah, links in the description for that. We'll be breaking down all of the other stuff. There's the LFA cards actually Thursday night
And looks good. So yeah,
as
we'll have
well.
to do it
Well,
early tomorrow.
hopefully, I looked into the UFC. I started taping EFC, and I was just like, I mean, last week I was taping. It's like a fine wine. ACA, that
That's good
stuff
stuff.
is just like, the lower weight classes in ACA. Those Russians and those Brazilians, I tell you, those guys can come into the UFC, win fights right now. And we're talking guys with like 20, 21-7 records. It's like they would come in and absolutely smash John Castaneda tomorrow. Just sign them
Correct.
up. They
Yeah,
probably
fact.
can't get visas or anything like that. I don't know. I
Nope.
don't.
Cousin killed a guy.
Something is up with these guys because like they should be over here, taking the spot of some of the people in the UFC. But that's neither here nor there. But that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. For producer Jared and Cody Saptic, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.